Good morning again. Every time I'm here I say, well, I won't be back. And like that old cat that you couldn't give away, she keeps returning. But I'm so happy to return with you. Thank you for those prayers and testimonies, Chloe. Lee. Great. Nice to hear you open up your heart, communicate with God. And thank you for letting me listen in. You're feeling better. I didn't say you were good.
Never good, no.
Glad to see each one of you actually this morning. Diane, I haven't seen you for a while. All right, you bring an excuse. We'll let you get away. We pray for Gladys. She's recovering, I understand. Is being feisty as usual, so they know we didn't disturb anything. So happy when you faithful people return to worship. It means so much to the community. Community is what we are about as believers. My father had a cousin. He's gone now, so I can talk about him without any recrimination. But he was a fine man. My father used to enjoy hunting and fishing with him. And he would, all his co-workers said he was a fine man until he found religion. And then he became more righteous than righteous itself. And he and his wife used to drive by our church door every Sunday morning to go to Monday, go to church. We weren't holy enough. And he helped build a little church there in Moncton, still exists. But eventually he and his wife were asked to leave, because even they couldn't be holy enough. Always going to be conflict. I think you spoke about that, didn't you, wisely in your prayer. Much wiser than you look. And he talked about conflict and tension, and bearing grudges, and staying at peace. You looked at my notes, I think. Someone has talked about the fact that sometimes tension and conflict can help build a community. That sounds almost at odds with one another. Do you know Jean Vanier? He's the son of one of our former Governor Generals, Georges P. Vanier. He's a Christian by his own admission. And he started in France an organization called l'Arche, the Ark, whereby he takes into his home mentally challenged individuals and helps them to live a normal life, helps them to, as much as it can be, helps educate them and helps just give them dignity and purpose and meaning in life. And here's what he says about conflict. You don't have to agree with it. I just want to give you a viewpoint. Jean Vanier says that communities need conflict. Isn't that strange? They need it. Or they need tension if they're ever going to grow and deepen. I don't know what he's talking about exactly. He's got me a little confused. I always think I don't need much more tension in my life than I've got. But I think, if I can interpret for him, I think Jean is talking about creative tension. Sometimes we can build one another up by working together in opposite directions. How's that sound for confusion? Yeah? Sometimes we can work together by bringing different skills, different ideas, different goals, and yet we can accomplish the same thing. Anyway, he goes on. Conflict can signal a new grace from God, but it's got to be looked at wisely and humanly. Well, I rarely see humans looking at anything wisely. But I think he has a point. But I also read another definition that I think I can concur. More honestly, it's by Dr. Robert Morgan, a fine Christian teacher and writer in the United States. And he says, many of us are far too busy. Stresses of life are wearing us down little by little. Our lives, with all the emotional entanglements and financial pressures, are more demanding than ever. We're not resting our bodies enough. We're not managing our schedules well enough, so that we're often very angry and anxious, pulled in so many directions as if we were a twistable balloon in the hands of a toddler. I agree with that statement quite a bit. That's what affects my life. Tensions pulling us apart. Even in this little community of believers, we have tensions. And you know, I wouldn't suggest who it was, but there are people in this congregation who can push us around. They can intimidate us. They can manipulate our behavior. Sometimes if people intimidate me to be better, that's a good manipulation of my behavior. Sometimes they intimidate us to do things that we don't necessarily really feel is right. Or that we really can't have our own opinions. We have to follow their opinion. You know, you can manipulate my behavior. You can make me behave. You can make me stop saying silly things. But you cannot manipulate my heart. There's only one person who has the key to entry to my heart. You know who it is. God is the one who has the key to our heart. He says in Revelation chapter 3, Jesus said, and you remember that famous painting, Holman's painting, Christ with the lantern standing at the door knocking? And what do you notice about that door? No latch on the outside. The latch is on the inside. Listen to Christ. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, that's your will, to open the door, I will come in and dine with them, fellowship with them, and make community with them. God has the key. No forced entry. There'll be no greater challenge in this building community of Hillgrove than to overcome tension and conflict. Sometimes we think of conflict as having to be something that is violent, and of course it can be violent. People do turn upon each other. Let me tell you a little bit about violent statistics from the United States. And I got this from the FBI. I phoned them, and they personally gave me this one. They said that in the United States there's a violent crime every 24 seconds. Imagine that, 24 seconds. There's an aggravated assault every 48 seconds. And there's a murder every 23 minutes. And usually the highest percentage of those murders are among young men and young women. Imagine that, a murder every 23 minutes. They go on in their statistics to tell that of all the emergency room visits, most of them, the highest percentage, are among women who have been battered. They said as well that during the Vietnam War in the 1950s, there were more women slain at home in the United States than American boys slain on the battlefield in Vietnam. How's that for violence? Can you imagine those statistics? More women at home died from violence than men on the battlefield. Well, it doesn't always have to be all violence. Not every violence is physical. We can be violent with our emotions. We can be violent with our attitudes. Do you know? And I hope I'm not talking about anybody, and I'm meaning no one. I don't know you well enough to talk about you. So if you're undergoing any of these experiences, I'm not hitting you personally. But you know that 50% of marriages end up in? That's right. 50%. That's violence. When you commit your life to somebody, when you say, we're going to walk down the aisles of life hand in hand, I'm committed to you, you're committed to me. And then someone rips that apart, not blaming anyone, but when it gets ripped apart, that's violence. I'm told among the factors that generate death, one of the highest factors is divorce. It's so ruins the heart that the spirit is battered. And one can lose years of living to death because of violence. Now, that's 50% of marriage. And that's sad enough. So you say, well, that's all right. 50% things are going well. You know it isn't. You guys and girls that are married know that you're not always happy with the other side of the house, are you? The other 50%, there's a great deal of hostility and a great deal of anger and separation. And I have seen couples stay together just because they don't want to be alone. Not because they love that other creature on the other side of the bed. They can barely tolerate his snoring. She can't even cook water without burning it. You know it. We are a violent society. We are in conflict. Live together, but we live apart. We come into church. We have nice smiles. And we like each other, as long as we don't get too close. Parents can't control their children. And they can't control their anger. And you know, when you rear your children in an aura and an atmosphere of anger, what are your children going to do? They're going to rear up and be angry at the same time. They'll repeat the pattern. One woman said that her boss was called Old Faithful behind her back. And they said, why do you call her Old Faithful? Is she that reliable? And the woman said, no. She erupts at least once a month in a violent rage. Throws things. How does that look in God's eyes? How do you suppose God, who is the creator and created us and placed us in a wonderful time and a wonderful place, how does it look? How do you suppose God sees it when we have conflict and tension and grudges and bitterness within this little congregation, within this community of believers? How do you suppose it appears? He has created beauty, and we like to twist it into something so strange, what we will accept in the church today that we wouldn't 100 years ago when I was a boy. You know, we're no longer scandalized in this church, or any church, when divorce rips the family apart. We're no longer scandalized in the church when people are caught for cheating. We say, oh, that's the way some people are. Got to make ends meet. Got to cut the odd corner. We're not scandalized by it. We're not horrified by it. You know, there are some families in churches who don't speak to one another. Do you suppose I'm not scandalized and say, oh, well, they're cantankerous. They're cantankerous. Suppose God is scandalized by it. You know, if a pastor gets fired, you know what the main reasons always are? Sex and money. You will never fire a pastor because he doesn't have enough compassion. You'll never fire a pastor because he doesn't have enough love. You'll never fire a pastor because he doesn't pay attention to his duties. I think we should be scandalized by that. But I'm not scandalized by much anymore. You know, a church can exist for decades, a church can exist year after year, call pastor after pastor, and yet the modicum of love never seems to grow. I should be scandalized when I come into a fellowship and I don't see the love, I don't feel the love, I don't understand the love. I may not be scandalized, but I know somebody who is scandalized by the lack of love in the church, and that's the one who built the church, the Lord Jesus Christ. When he says that his supreme value in life is love. He gave the great commandment in Matthew 22, didn't he? He said, this is the summation of all the holy teaching I've ever taught. This is the summation of my whole life. That you shall love God and you shall love He said, that sums up my theology all in one sentence. That's my divine revelation. Now, we don't slander one another here because we're not allowed. It's illegal, isn't it? I slander Robbie, he can take me to court, and he would, and I know it. So I keep quiet, I don't slander him. But you know what I can do? You know what I do indulge in? I love to indulge, I don't know if I love it. But I like to indulge in judging unfairly. I love to bear grudges. I like to gossip too. Don't you tell me anything. I promise not to tell it until I get around the corner. But you know, even though I indulge in those things, I bear grudges and I'm hostile within the congregation. You know, those are violations of God's royal law of love. They're violations. I'm breaking His law. I'm not going to break the law and slander you, because you'll sue me. But I willingly, frequently, break God's holy law of love. And I'm ashamed of myself. He has invited us with a grand invitation to participate in the fellowship of the Holy Trinity. You belong to that club, the fellowship of the Holy Trinity. Let me remind you what Jesus said in John chapter 17. Jesus said, as you, Father, are in me, and I am in you, may they also be in us. May they, the people of Hillgrove, the people of Pinnacle, the people of Second North River, may they be in us. May they participate in the Holy Trinity. What an invitation that is for you and for me to partake in that fellowship. That's a grand privilege, but I take it so easily for granted. May they also be in us so that the world may believe that you have sent me. What an impact Hillgrove could have on all the surrounding communities. If people felt there was a special love here, and that Jesus Christ's name was proclaimed above every name in genuine compassion. Wouldn't that be something? Robbie, you couldn't seat them all. You know why they don't come? Why they don't come to Second North River? Why we have empty pews? They don't believe us. We say, oh, we're a church of love. You know, we violate that oneness with Christ, that oneness with God. We contribute to the destruction of that oneness when we refuse to have compassion upon one another, when we refuse to love one another. God prized unity. He prized oneness, and He paid a great price to achieve it. And I destroy it every time I break His law. Think of that, the fellowship of the Trinity. You're invited to belong. You're part of it when you show His love. Paul speaks about those kind of violations when he talked to the church at Corinth. He said, I've got something against you here at Corinth. You can read it in chapter 5. He said, you're far too worldly. What he meant was, you're going in the opposite direction of God's will. You're going in the opposite direction of God's way. He said, I've got it again. He lists a whole bunch. Many of them were sexual sins. But I picked on 2. Jealousy and bitterness. You're going against God's grain. You're quarreling among yourselves. He said, how can you proclaim the name of Christ when you hate each other? How can you proclaim the name of Christ when you try to use each other? I have 2 main reasons why I get angry. First of all, the first type of anger, I get angry at things. You know, when I trip over, if you haven't seen my floor and you don't want to, but if I trip over a stack of books, I wind up the cat and I throw out my wife. I get mad at things. I get in a hurry. And I'm tying my shoelaces. And I'm already late and the road's slippery and I gotta speed and I break my shoelace. And I curse every machine that picked cotton and wove that shoelace. I go out in the cold morning and the car won't start. And I go for the tire iron and I pump the car. I'm going to teach it a lesson. Oh, come on, you've done the same thing. You kicked the car, I know you have. We get angry at inanimate objects. I know a dear man by the name of Ron Byers. Maybe you met Ron from Berry Mills. God was chasing. I wish you'd get him here someday to give his message, his witness. It's so much better than mine. But he has shared it publicly, so I can do it too. Ron Byers was being chased by God. And Ron Byers was running as far as he could away from God. He didn't like God, he didn't believe in God, he didn't trust God, and he wasn't going to listen to anything about God. One morning, he was late for work. And he went out to start the car. It was cold. He was late. He was mad. The tire was flat. What did he do? Just what I would do. He kicked the tire and cursed God. And after he finished kicking the tire and beating up on the car, he said, what did I just say? He cursed God. Well, he said, if I'm going to curse God, apparently I must believe in him. If he's there for me to curse, he must be real. And he began to melt that cold, stone cold heart. And he began to give in to God's and the Spirit's call upon his life. And now he's one of the finest testimonies. Well, I don't get angry just at my car. I'm not going to let you out. I get angry at you too. I get angry at people who are close to me. Isn't it strange how we try to hurt the people that are the closest? Oh, it doesn't take much for you to upset me. Just look at me the wrong way. Huh? Don't rub my feathers the wrong way. We have an old cat and you rub her the wrong way. Rawr. Somebody surveyed a group of little children. And they said, how would you like your mama to be different? You know what one little fella said? I wish my mom didn't yell at me so much. What an impact and an influence we have on other people, especially our children and our grandchildren. When you're a parent, you never have time to love your children. You have to wait till you're a grandparent, don't you? So then you've got time to love them and indulge them and spoil them. Make little brats out of them. I know it's... You know, Jesus gave us a set of instructions how to handle conflict in our lives, how to handle conflict in our little community of believers, how to handle conflict in the whole community. He says there are always going to be breakdowns in how we deal with one another. But he said, I've got a Bible here, my word, and specifically Matthew 18. Listen to it. And I'm going to use two different translations. If your brother or sister sins, and what he means there, if they're in conflict with you, go to them and try to show them their faults and get a punch in the mouth. Have you ever gone and tried to tell someone, well, look, you know, Mike, there's a lot wrong with you. Yeah. Have you got the time? No. What's Mike going to do? Slap me around? Yeah, of course you would. I wouldn't blame you. There ought to be some kind of a relationship between us in a community where I can be honest with you. We ought to be able to trust one another. We ought to be able to feel safe with one another. You tell me something private about you, I ought to be able to keep it to myself and share it with God. Jesus, go, show them their fault, just between the two of you in private. I never list your faults in public. They've got their own list of you. I'd go to you in private. Be personal about this thing. And if they listen to you, if they will discuss the problem with you, then you've won them over, and that's reconciliation. Reconciliation isn't easy. People leave our fellowships, people leave our churches, people leave our families, and they're bitter and they bear grudges and they don't want anything to do with us. And yet God instructs us, go to them and try to reconcile them. But I'm so tempted to do the opposite. When you hurt me, I don't want anything more to do with you. You say, I don't want to see you again, and I cut you out of my life, and I don't talk to you, I don't think about you, and I never visit you. Christ says that's not the way to handle conflict. In my name, try to bring some kind of common agreement. You know, we just celebrated Easter. And that miracle at Easter, as described in John chapter 20, has given you and me a special power. You know what the special power is? There are probably many. I know we have the power of the resurrection ourselves when that day comes that we die. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Christ gave us the power of absolution. That's a big power to have. You know what it is? It's the power to forgive. I have the ability, in fact, I've got the command, that I need to forgive you when you wrong me. When I allow the Holy Spirit to infiltrate my life, when I've experienced the miracle of Easter, then I have fulfilled the commandments of the forgiveness. That's what it has allowed me to do. You know, at one time, there is a church that believes that only special ordained men can give you the power of absolution. Only they can forgive you. Christ said, I make you a priesthood of believers. You've got that amazing, wonderful power because of Easter. We're Easter people today. We believe in the resurrection. We believe in eternity. And we now have an amazing power to forgive. And you know, when God forgives, He forgets. Happy is the man who, when he realizes that he has received a pardon from God, that he will turn around and extend that same pardon to those around him. Isn't it wonderful when God stamped our account closed? Your sins aren't held against you. I have forgotten them. But you know, when you sin against me, I don't want to ever let you forget what you did to me. I want to rub your noses in it. I want to see you grovel on your hands and knees and beg my forgiveness. That's not what Christ commands. There was an old Scottish doctor who lived in a little Highland village. And the people were too poor for his service. He didn't charge much. But many of them were still too poor to pay. So when he opened his account books, he wrote in red ink, against their account, debt forgiven, too poor to pay. Cross it out. Debt forgiven, too poor to pay. The doctor died, and the accountants came in on his wife's request to open up his books and see what she was owed. She said, this can't be. I'm entitled to what was owed him. I'm his widow. He left everything to me, and those accounts are mine. She was of a different position than that fine old Christian Scottish doctor. She took those patients to court. She said to the judge, they owe my husband. He left his estate to me. It's mine. The judge looked at the accounts and he said, is that handwriting your husband? Oh, yes, she said. He kept his own account. Then the judge said, no court can obtain money from those who are forgiven. No Satan can obtain charges against you when they've been forgiven, when Christ, with his own blood, wrote against your account. Forgiven, debt paid, unable to save themselves. I've done it for them. Account closed. When God raised Jesus from the dead, he sealed our pardon. Because I have his pardon, I owe you a pardon. I need to share that blessing. I need to share that pardon with you. I need to mark across your debts to me. Forgiven for your grudges held against me. Forgiven for your bitterness held against me. Forgiven for the conflicts you have generated against me. Forgiven. Debt paid in full. All my iniquities on him were laid. He nailed them all to the tree. Jesus, the debt of my sin fully paid, because he paid the ransom for me. You and I owe him a great deal. We don't have time for petty conflicts and petty grudges and hostility and bitterness and tension. We just have time to work together for the oneness of the fellowship of the Holy Spirit, the Holy Family. God bless you. I know you'll work.